In the fall of 1934, a cold wind moved through the woods near my hometown, carrying with it a quiet that felt heavier than usual. Back then, rural America was struggling. Families lived off the land, prayed for rain, and hoped the next season would be better than the last. Houses sat miles apart, separated by fields, broken fences, and long, lonely stretches of dirt road. People trusted their neighbors because they had no choice, and secrets, especially dark ones, had a way of hiding in plain sight. On the edge of town stood a farmhouse that many locals avoided. The man who lived there, Harold, kept mostly to himself. Some days he was quiet, other days he was short-tempered, unpredictable, and impossible to talk to. His wife tried to keep the home together, but inside those walls something was always wrong. The three children tiptoed through the hallways like they were walking across thin ice, never knowing when Harold's anger would explode. Even the elderly mother-in-law, frail and slow, seemed afraid to make a sound.
Neighbors sometimes heard arguments drifting across the fields, plates shattering, doors slamming, muffled cries that died out too quickly. But in the 1930s, people minded their own business. Everyone had problems, and no one believed that a nightmare was slowly unfolding behind that farmhouse door. Harold grew stranger as the months passed. He wandered the woods at night, muttering to himself. He spent long hours in the root cellar behind his home, slamming the doors shut whenever someone walked too close. Neighbors noticed the smell, a sour, rotting odor that clung to the air. Harold always blamed it on spoiled vegetables. People nodded and pretended they believed him, even though something about his eyes suggested a deeper, darker truth.
But no one suspected how far things had already gone. The morning everything changed started out like any other. My great-grandfather took his 13-year-old son, Tom, on a hunting trip through the woods. The sky was a pale gray, the kind that made everything feel colder. The ground was damp, leaves matted together under their boots. Their old hound walked ahead, sniffing the air, tail twitching. Suddenly, the dog stopped. Its body went stiff, ears raised. Then it bolted deeper into the trees, barking wildly. Tom ran after it, calling out, stumbling through branches that slapped his face. His father yelled for him to slow down, but the boy kept going. The forest felt darker the further he ran. The air seemed heavier, colder, almost unnatural. Then he saw it. The dog circling something half buried under leaves and dirt. A burlap sack. The dog whined, pawing at it. Tom knelt, confused, and reached for the rope tied around the top. His breath came out in little clouds. Something inside him whispered not to open it, but curiosity pulled his hand forward anyway. He loosened the rope, lifted the edge, and froze. Inside the bag was the head of a child, eyes half open, staring up at him. Tom stumbled backward, trying to scream, but no sound came out. His heart hammered so loudly he couldn't hear anything else. The world around him felt blurry, unreal. Then he felt it. The cold presence of someone standing behind him. He turned slowly. Harold stood there, dirt on his clothes, breathing hard, holding another burlap sack, fresh blood dripping from the bottom. His eyes were empty, hollow, like someone had reached inside him and removed everything human. He didn't speak. He didn't blink. He simply tightened his grip on the bag and took a step toward the boy. Tom wanted to run, to scream, to do anything, but terror pinned him to the ground. He felt completely helpless, a 13-year-old staring into the eyes of a man who had murdered an entire family. Just when Harold raised the bag slightly, as if preparing to swing it, a shotgun blast echoed through the forest. Tom's father burst through the trees, screaming at Harold, the gun raised and ready to fire again. Harold dropped the bag and ran, disappearing into the shadows of the woods. Tom collapsed to the ground, shaking uncontrollably. His father grabbed him and shielded his eyes so he wouldn't see what was inside the second bag. When the sheriff arrived, the forest had already changed forever. Deputies searched Harold's property and forced open the root cellar doors. The smell hit them instantly, a thick, sickening odor of decay that made even the strongest men gag. Inside the cellar, under layers of dirt and rotting vegetables, they found burlap bags filled with the dismembered remains of Harold's wife, her elderly mother, and all 3 children. Every bag told a story of terror, and every corner of that cellar felt like it was soaked in unspeakable violence. Harold was caught 2 days later, hiding in an abandoned barn. He confessed quietly, without emotion, as if he were discussing something ordinary. He simply said, "They wouldn't stop screaming. I needed quiet." There was no remorse, no guilt, just emptiness. After a short trial, he was sentenced to be hanged, a punishment carried out only 2 months later. But the story didn't end there. Tom never spoke about that morning again, not to his friends, not to his family, not even to his own children. The memory stayed locked inside him like a curse. Sometimes, late at night, he would wake up screaming, haunted by the image of the child's face in the sack or the killer's hollow stare only a few feet away. When Tom died many decades later, we found a trunk hidden under his bed. Inside were old newspaper clippings about the murders, sheriff's reports, a hand-drawn map of the woods where he found the sack, and a piece of rope, the same kind that had been tied around the burlap bag. He had saved everything, unable to let go of the horror he had witnessed. People in town say the woods near the old farmhouse are haunted. They talk about strange sounds at night, about lights flickering between the trees, about a feeling that something or someone is still watching from the shadows. But I think the truth is far more tragic. Some places don't need ghosts to be haunted. Some memories are terrifying enough on their own. And sometimes the people who survive carry the heaviest hauntings of all.